Today, we're going to talk about brewing with the Moka Pot. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world. This is the Brew channel. I'm Hurston, and I'll be your guide as we attempt to figure out how we brew whatever we brew better. And so this continues our series on the hardware that we'll actually be using to brew the coffee, tea, and infusion beverages when we're actually kind of testing these things out in the very near future. Today, we'll be talking about the Moka Pot, and this particular device is an older device. Just in terms of form factor, this particular one, though, I really like because it has its electrical base. So I'll hold that up here. There you go. So this is kind of where it sits, and then of course that's the power button. And then we have the Moka Pot itself. And so what I really like about this particular unit is it's relatively self-contained. Let's break this thing down so you all can kind of see what it's comprised of. So you have this top component of the Moka Pot. It actually unscrews from the bottom reservoir. And so you can see here, try to get it to focus. There we go. So it has kind of these perforated holes in the bottom, and that's essentially where the coffee is going to pass through once it's completed its infusion process. And then in the top, it actually comes out in, give me a second, I'm trying to get this to focus. There it is. So this actually comes out of that little hole. There's actually two of those holes on either side of that little spigot at the top, and it actually pours down into this reservoir. So you'll notice that this is a relatively small reservoir for coffee. It's primarily intended to make espresso. We're gonna brew all kinds of things in this because I do want to test and see what the flavor profile is like if you brew it with this method, just in case you're maybe brewing it for yourself. But essentially, the idea of this machine is to brew something a little more concentrated than some of the other brewing devices that we've already taken a look at, and some of the ones we'll take a look at here in the near future. I'll put this there. So this unit also has this. Let's see if we can get it. Okay, cool. So this is actually where your coffee grounds will go, and this particular one comes with kind of a lid, and I believe this is actually for tamping. In my early times of using this device, I was putting it underneath, but I don't think that was correct. I think it's actually intended to hold down the coffee once it's on the inside, because as you can see when I held it up to the camera, it has this little knob on it for lifting it in and out of the reservoir. This particular model, at the time that I got it, didn't come with any instructions, so I guess they just assume I would know what to do with all of these components. But just in doing some research, watching a couple of videos, I was able to figure out, okay, that's what this is actually used for. It's for like kind of pressing down on the coffee grounds inside of here before they begin the process of percolating to the top. Then there's a bottom reservoir, as you can see here, right? And so this is actually where the water will be held before it brews to the top and infuses with the coffee. A couple of things to note, even with this one that's electrical. So even if you weren't using one that was electrical, maybe you had one that was to be used on a cooktop, this bottom unit gets really, really, really hot. Really hot. So it's important that once the water is in here and it's reached its boiling point, you kind of stay mindful of that fact. Even after it's done with its process, once it's completed percolating, you want to make sure that you do not grab the Moka Pot from the bottom. Do not grab the Moka Pot from the bottom.
Do not grab the Moka Pot from the bottom.
This part is exceptionally hot. You will burn your fingertips off. Okay, I might be embellishing a bit, but still, you get the gist. Make sure that you do not grab this pot by the bottom. Grab it by whatever handle is being provided, okay? The other thing to note is that when you lift this lid, the coffee that's inside of it will also be very hot. So you want to lift the lid very carefully and very slowly after you've completed your brewing process so that you don't burn your face with, steam that's coming out. So these are all the things that I learned. I won't say the hard way, but it wasn't necessarily the easy way either. And they allowed me to better understand how to use this device successfully. A couple of other tips that I can drop in. One, make sure that your coffee grounds are fine. You want them to be closer to kind of an espresso grind. And when I'm actually using this, and we show it here momentarily, you'll kind of get to see what level of grind I use inside of this device. The reason that I'm advising you to do that is so that your actual infusion happens the way that it's supposed to. It's supposed to be kind of a smooth infusion. So once it comes out of the top, it's supposed to come out rather smooth. In my particular case, it came out rather quickly and kind of spewed all over the place. And the reason is because my grounds weren't dense enough. They weren't packed tight enough. And so the coffee just kind of flew through it from an infusion standpoint. Now, what came out still tasted very good, but it didn't yield the results that I was looking for, nor what this device is capable of. And so this is a relatively simple device. It didn't take a long time to kind of explain the way that it worked or break down its components. So here shortly, we're actually going to look at how do we use this particular device to brew our coffee better. All right, so using the Moka Pot. One other tip that I didn't mention before, and this was kind of a hack thing that I found in a couple of different videos, is that you should actually get your water to near boiling temperature before you load it into your bottom reservoir. So that's what I've done here. I've actually gone ahead and run this water through my kettle, and I'm now pouring this hot water into the bottom reservoir. I want to be careful not to overfill the bottom reservoir because that can also create a bit of a mess and yield not so great results when it comes to the actual flavor of the coffee. So make sure you follow your instructional guide for your particular Moka Pot. They may have different levels that you fill to just depending on the capacity of that pot. But in this particular case, I want to make sure that I keep it below. There's a little spout that you can see on the outside. I want to keep it just below that with my boiling water. I then want to go ahead and load in my coffee grounds. Again, these need to be fine. Almost like an espresso fine. And I'm going to kind of hold these up to the camera a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about. So you want to have grounds that appear to be like this. And that's because it's going to allow for proper infusion from the Moka Pot as it begins its percolating process. Now I want to make sure that I put the little kind of compacting lid on top of this. And then I want to place this inside of the reservoir with the water and begin to screw the top on so that I can get ready to go ahead and brew in my Moka Pot. Again, the beauty of this particular Moka Pot is that it is in fact self-contained. Because it has its own base that is electrically charged, I don't have to worry about pulling out a cooktop or firing up the range. I can just go ahead and drop it back on its unit and hit the power button and allow it to do its thing. What heating the water before this process does for the Moka Pot is it kind of accelerates the amount of time it's going to take to brew it. This was a tip that I got from James Hoffman. If you don't follow him, you absolutely should, because he is one of the top and foremost baristas and brewers of all things coffee, tea, and infusion. I'll put a link for his channel in the description below. Once it's completed its process, you're going to hear it kind of spurt out of the top. It makes kind of a hissing sound. Once that's complete and you don't hear any more noise for it, your coffee should be ready to be consumed. Now, because this is going to be a little stronger than normal, because again, it's intended to brew espresso, you may want to have a little extra hot water on the side to add if you're not looking for a really strong coffee flavor or a really strong kind of espresso type flavor out of your coffee. You want to make sure you have some water nearby to just kind of cut the strength of the coffee down a bit. It's also not going to be a bad idea potentially to mix this with a little bit of creamer, a little bit of milk, something that'll cut the tension of the coffee, as it were, and allow you to better enjoy this beverage. All right, so you all will notice that that was a relatively simple process. The Moka Pot is not a very complicated device to use. It's fairly easy to clean as long as your grounds don't get down in your water reservoir for one reason or another. So you want to make sure you keep that space clear of any additional grounds. But the unit, because it separates where the grounds are actually held, it comes out very easily. This particular one is made, I believe, out of either aluminum or a stainless steel. So rinsing it and washing it out is relatively easy. I do want to stress that it is important that for the Moka Pot itself, you want to make sure that you rinse everything out relatively quickly after you've done your brewing process and you've served up your beverage. You just don't want that to kind of set in and, maybe probably create some challenges in getting that particular profile of that coffee out of your device. So go ahead and rinse it and wash it as soon as you're done. But it has really, really easy cleanup, which makes it a pretty simple device to brew with. I enjoy brewing with it. If I am in fact looking for kind of an espresso style caffeinated beverage or coffee related beverage. So hopefully in watching this video, you picked up on yet another way to brew the coffee that you currently brew or that you intend to brew better. This is a pretty quick video, so I'm kind of glad that we could get in and out with the Moka Pot, because the next couple of videos will cover some pour over techniques that I discovered after I began this journey. One of the recommendations actually came from you all, and it was in a comment. I'll kind of post that here below. So I'm saying that to let you know that I do in fact read your comments, I read your feedback, I read your suggestions. So if you continue to have any of those things, feedbacks, thoughts, suggestions, and recommendations, please drop them in the comment section below. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. We're continuing to build our community, and I want to make sure that I'm able to continue to put out this type of content for you all. So hopefully this particular method is one that if you didn't know about it, you were intrigued by, you found it interesting, you learned something, you feel empowered to go and use the technique, and hopefully inclined to go and share what you've learned in an effort to help us all brew whatever we brew better. Until next time, peace.